Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. And ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him.
On May 10th, 2026, I opened YouTube and was greeted by a strange video on my homepage. The video was titled, "Yo, move the sensor bar!" Oh, right, it didn't have a title. That's the weird part. The video was uploaded 3 days before I saw it, May 7th. The channel that uploaded it is called Caedes, which I'll just pronounce as Caedes for simplicity. In Latin, it means slaughter or massacre, but no reason is given anywhere in the channel information as to why. The video is short, nothing crazy, but it's still eerie. It's weirdly dark, and there are 2 sensor bars on the screen, one covering the Minecraft version and the other covering nothing. It doesn't even persist for the entire video. The contents of the video are seemingly normal though. It's just basic Minecraft gameplay, and yet also not. That was a vanilla cave noise, but it's a lot louder and slower than it should be, and it scared the person recording, presumably Caedes, into leaving the hole they were in. And later on, after building a house, something weird happens. The time changes as a ghast screams, and there appear to be some new structures outside of Caedes' house that weren't there before this. Once he goes inside, he crafts a sword for defense. Well, that was certainly an introduction, but to what? To Caedes? We don't even know who that is, so let's figure it out. The channel has 19 videos. We only just saw the first, and already some major questions are being raised. First, why is the version of the game censored? Second, why is this person named Slaughter in Latin? And lastly, with the gas noise, time change, jump scare, what's actually going on? One of these questions we can actually attempt to answer, at least partially. The game version. Why it's censored is still a mystery, but the game version being played is less so for 2 major reasons. Firstly, the sheep, when punched, dropped wool, which is only a feature on versions before beta 1.7. Secondly, these small lakes. They only started appearing in the game after alpha version 1.2.6, so this must be a version after that, but before beta 1.7. Why the version is censored though is still unknown, but that, and all of our current and future questions, can only be answered by watching more, so I'll stop dragging. Video 2, no title. This video confirms what we were just talking about, as the splash text says, pre-beta. But unfortunately, the version is still censored. Caedes joins the same world slot as before, but is spawned in the nether, with all of his items gone. He wanders for a bit before stumbling across a very unnatural tunnel, at which point we see a new face. Or name, I guess, we don't actually see their face. Moors136 joins, and says this before leaving. He then returns, somehow behind Caedes. He simply says, "Huh?" and then knocks Caedes into the lava below. He then attempts to respawn, but alright, let's unpack whatever just happened. Basics first. His score on the game over screen. Seems weird, but it's actually just what happens when you have 0 XP. The error message. It's a real message, but why it's being shown here at all is not known. Now, more importantly, everything else. Let's start with the new guy, Mors 136. In Latin, Mors means death, and taken literally, this character is death itself. But what did he say? Earlier he sent Morse code in chat, however it's impossible to decipher, at least as far as I can tell. Why, you ask? Well, it's because there are no spaces, and without spaces, you can't decode Morse. Take this for example, 2 dots. Without spaces, it's the letter I, but with a space, it's 2 E's. This is easy, there are only 2 possible meanings. But this? There are over 5,000 possible combinations, and I would have to check every single one to decode it. So I did. I ran a Python code to decode it into every possible combination, and I got nothing. 0 English or Latin words. So instead I did it with Russian. You'll see why in a minute, but regardless, it worked. 5,535 results, 1 perfect match. Smert, Mors in Latin, death in English. These 3 words all mean the same thing, death. But why is death itself a player, and why are they saying their own name for no reason? Well, that's another thing we have to add to the list of questions. But I promise, it'll be blank by the end of this. Another thing is the audio playing in this video. It's hard to tell because of how distorted it is, but it's music being played backwards. It's a very basic melody, but a melody nonetheless. What song it is, I don't actually know, as it's far too distorted to recognize. But if you do know what it is, be sure to leave a comment. Last but not least, where are we? Caedes never went into a portal, and he certainly didn't drop all of his items, at least not on camera. So why is he in the Nether, and what happened after he respawned? He's only in the game for about 4 frames before being kicked out, and then the video just stops. Unfortunately, because this is the second video, we just have nothing to work off of. So this video leaves us with more questions than answers. But these questions are like puzzle pieces. A single piece can't reveal the whole picture, but that doesn't mean an individual piece is useless. It just means we don't have all of them. So for now, let's keep them in mind and move on to video 3. The 3rd video in the series. Still no title. This video starts back in Caedes' house like nothing happened. But something did. His hotbar is different. The hole he went into in the first video is blocked off with a sign on top that says, "Do not open." Outside is the same as well, albeit with the strange stone pillars still present. He begins to walk away and finds a series of stone crosses outside of his house. Once he reaches the second cross, a super loud cave noise plays, and he notices a much larger cross off in the distance. He walks up to it and looks around before doing this. The video ends with the flash of Morse code, thankfully with spaces this time. Russian again, which is why I tried Russian in the last video at all. This time saying, "Death is close, I am close." This is presumably talking about Mors, but is this Mors talking to Caedes, referring to himself as death, or Jesus talking to whoever is recording? Whoever's recording? What do you mean? Well, what I mean is that this may not be Caedes. After all, in the last video he seemingly couldn't rejoin. And in this video his hotbar is different and missing most of his items. But if this isn't Caedes, who is it? Well, the only other character we know of is Mors. Perhaps this basement for some reason led to the Nether, and after knocking Caedes into the lava, Mors took his place. But maybe I'm reaching. However, I wouldn't say it's impossible, so keep it in mind. On top of that, we hear footsteps approaching, but the video ends before we see anyone. So it goes like this. A pork chop is thrown towards the cross, Jesus appears, someone starts to approach, and they refer to themselves as death. But depending on if this is actually Caedes' POV or not, it may or may not be Mors talking. But who and why will have to be questions on the list for the time being. The 4th video on the channel, still devoid of a title, starts right where we ended last time. However, the crosses are gone, the pickaxe in the hotbar is repaired, and the pork chop is back. They return to the house Caedes built. The roof is gone, as well as the basement opened, and the stone pillars are also not present. So if I were right in assuming that this basement leads to the Nether, perhaps Mors got out at the end of video 2, went back in video 3, and now Caedes is back in video 4. That would explain why there are a bunch of inconsistent character details. Caedes hears a ghast sound and falls into the hole. sealing it back up after blocking out. He then goes outside and explores. As the sun rises, he finds a clearing with a ring of cobblestone pillars, and near the middle is an upright cross, with a multitude of upside-down crosses behind it. Near those, a sign that says, "Bring us a sacrifice, and we will show you the truth," in Latin. So he does. He goes and kills a cow, getting 2 leather, and also a dandelion. He takes those to the lake and offers them along with a pork chop he had in his inventory. A few seconds after that, we see this. The video ends with this frame, a heavily distorted and desaturated version of the Salvator Mundi, Latin for Savior of the World, a painting of Jesus by Leonardo da Vinci. The scene before it depicts 4 people, one of which cut down a cross while the others watched. Once it falls, the one who cut it turns into an upright cross, and the others turn into inverted crosses, similar to the cobblestone structure we see in the clearing. The scene ends with a set of coordinates. They lead to the Holy Church of the Sepulchre in Jerusalem, but there's no elaboration as to why. The only other thing of note is this sacrifice that Caedes made to the pond. It's strange in of itself, but something easy to miss is the sign. Caedes read it and understood it despite it being written in Latin, so that means at minimum he can read and write in Latin, which means that the sign at his house might not have been placed by him. It's written in English. The sign also says, "We will show you the truth," which implies that whatever this scene is the truth. But who's we? The sign doesn't just say, "Bring a sacrifice" or "Bring me a sacrifice." It specifically says us and we. So who is this sacrifice for? And what's so important about what they showed Caedes? Well, like most things, it's simply not something we can answer yet, but perhaps the next video can shed some light on that. Video 5 is titled Nothing, as per usual. This one starts seemingly normal, but as soon as a world is joined, we can see that it's anything but that. We start on a wooden cross in the water. It's dark and hard to see anything, and there's an incredibly loud rising noise in the background. Then a player named Primum, first in English, joins the game. The person recording asks, "Who are you?" Their name in chat is Moors136, so clearly this is his POV rather than Caedes. Primum responds by saying this: "Each number is the placement of a letter in the alphabet, and decodes into the word exposition." After that, Moors attempts to attack Primum, but he isn't fazed and simply leaves. After which, the sun rises and all hell breaks loose. The video then cuts to another point of view. I'm aware it's a freshly baked 2.5 pixels, but we can make out the shape of the crosses from video 4, which means we're probably back at the lake. After being teleported here, Moors makes his way back to Caedes' house, and on his way he sees these coordinates. The coordinates lead here, a small village in Palestine sometimes called the Pope's Mountain. Why it's here, I don't really know. But once the player arrives back at Caedes' house, it's entirely gone aside from a hole in the floor, and a large cross stands outside. Moors peers into the darkness, and then he hears something. He makes the sensible decision to leave, and the video ends shortly after. One thing we got from this video are these coordinates. However, I don't really know what they're for. It's very close to the other set of coordinates we got in video 4, but neither of them seem very important. That aside, the most notable thing we got from this video is that, based on the chat at the start, the POV does in fact switch between characters, and we're seeing Moors' POV right now and not Caedes'. Additionally, there's a new character, Primum, but who he is or why he's here is a mystery. Not just to us, but also to Moors, as he seemingly doesn't know who Primum is. When he leaves, the sun rises, and sirens blare as a face appears and the word Mori covers the screen. Mori in Latin means to die, which is different from Moors, which just means death. But why is this being told to Moors? How can death die? More importantly, who is saying this? In every video there have been strange occurrences happening to both Caedes and Moors, and yet no apparent cause for any of them. But maybe there isn't supposed to be. Primum says exposition, so perhaps some or all of what we've seen isn't even meant to make sense yet, and is instead the setup to something larger, the exposition to the truth that the sign at the pond spoke of. So with that in mind, let's move on to video 6. Still no title, but surprisingly there is a description. Well, It's invisible, but there's a countable number of invisible characters here. If we count how many there are per line, we get this set of numbers. And when decoded using the same method that we used before, we get save me. The video itself starts normally, but the world that the previous 5 videos took place on is now deleted, so a new one is made. It's rather innocent. Nothing particularly weird happens until a few minutes into the video. Upon returning, we're back on the sand near the house that was being built, but why this happened at all isn't really clear. A minute later, the house is finished, and when entered, the cut happens again, but this time to a dark, snowy tundra, with a distorted and slowed down version of Minecraft playing in the background. There are no in-game noises aside from the music, and the person recording gathers some dirt to build a small shack, but as soon as it's finished, Primum and a new person, Secundus, join the game, and the colors get distorted. They walk towards the person recording. Shortly after that, Mors joins, so by process of elimination, the POV we're seeing must be Caedes. After seeing Mors, Secundus and Primum both leave, and the colors return to normal. Although the footage is very low quality, we can see Mors chasing Caedes down, but before he catches up, Caedes does something smart and leaves the game. The video ends with this text, which translates to, "You shall not kill, go and sin no more." Below that text are coordinates that lead to a church in Ukraine, though just like before, I'm not really sure why. However, we are introduced to a new character, Secundus, second in Latin. Who they are, what they do, or why are unknown. Primum also returns, but neither of them do much before leaving, so unfortunately we don't learn much about them. Mors, on the other hand, we do. In this video, Primum and Secundus leave when they see him, and he chases Caedes down, who runs in fear. So clearly, Mors is some kind of villain. Everyone has been scared of him so far, and his name is literally death. But regardless of who he is, why is he trying to get to Caedes? Once again at the end of the video, Jesus speaks, at least presumably, as "go and sin no more" is a quote from John 8:11, but the first part, "you shall not kill," isn't. This is presumably directed at Mors, as he's the one doing the killing. So Caedes is seemingly under some kind of divine protection, and Mors is the one who he needs protecting from, which would explain the description, and also give Mors a motive, but not a clearly backed one. We know Mors intends to kill Caedes, but not why. And you might be thinking, didn't Mors already kill Caedes? In video 2, he got knocked into the lava, and yeah, he did. I don't know what the deal is here. It's simply another question we'll have to wait and answer when we get more information. One other minor detail though is that Caedes seems hell-bent on building a house. I don't know if this is an intended detail or if Caedes is simply trying to speedrun getting set up in a world due to the fact that he keeps getting invaded by demons. It's not made clear, but it is something Caedes consistently does. So with all of that on our list, let's move on to video 7. This video, still no title, starts on the loading screen. The player walks outside, and this world seems to be the original one, with a large stone cross near the water, smaller stone crosses on a hillside, and similar terrain. After walking outside, a sensor bar is added to the word Minecraft on the top left of the screen, and for whatever reason, this prompts the person to go inside and craft a sword. Interestingly, there's no audio, up until we hear this. The only words I can make out here are "help me." Everything else sounds like nothing more than breathing. After that, a heavily slowed down cave noise plays. The player continues walking up until they reach a snowy tundra with a large golden cross. They place torches for the first time that we've seen, and then the cross's head begins to shift to the right, and they're teleported into the nether. And for the first time in the entire series, we see the game version. Alpha version 1.6.6, a non-existent version of the game. Their items are also wiped, and we see 3 people standing in a ring of fire in front of a glowstone cross. They all say one line of text and reveal their names: Primum, Secundus, and Tertia, meaning first, second, and third. Primum says this. I literally have no clue what it means, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Secundus says this. This Morse isn't translatable due to having too few spaces, but of all possible translations in English, Latin, and Russian, the only coherent word is yes. Tertia says, "Miss Home," with basic numeric encoding. After they each say their piece, Morse joins, which means that this must be Caedes' POV. He says nothing, the others leave, and so does he. The video ends with a loud noise and an encoded link flashing across the screen. This is the link, which is presumably encoded by a Visionaire cipher, based on the fact that repeating letters in the link, like www, are not all the same letter. This is how it works. You use a keyword to determine how to encode each individual letter by assigning them a value based on their placement in the alphabet, starting at 0. So A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, and so on. You then use that value to shift the text using a Caesar cipher, which encodes the text by moving the letters back and forth through the alphabet by a certain amount. A shift of 1 would turn A to B, B to C, and so on. So you take the value of the letters in the key and use that for the shift in the Caesar cipher. Encoding the word hello using the key ABC would turn H to H, E to F, and L into N. And then the key would repeat until the text is fully encoded. So, now that you know how this works, let me explain why this link is confusing. Basically, we don't have a key. Without a key, it's impossible to decode. And believe me, I tried every keyword I could think of. So instead, we can try decoding it by looking at its appearance. Visionaire ciphers only encode letters, which means we have a lot of stuff to work with here. For example, it's clearly a link, so we just need to find what website it came from. Eventually, someone else figured out that this is a link to the website Bible Gateway by matching the character lengths, which means that this part of the link must be a book of the Bible, as well as a verse. Based on the length of the numbers, it has to be 1 John, as no other book of the Bible is numbered and also only has 4 letters. Based on that, this part is meant to be a verse, which appears to be 3:15. This part appears to be the translation type. However, there are so many 3-letter translations of the Bible, NLV, NIV, KJV, that it's basically impossible to know which this was intended to be. So I just used the King James Version. So, 1 John 3:15 on the Bible Gateway website. The verse itself says, "Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him." Who needs a Visionaire key? Not me. That's a lie. Not actually having a key is why I, and nobody I know of, is able to decode Primum's text. With nothing to go off of and no key, it's legitimately impossible to decode this text with any level of certainty, because unlike this link, there are no numbers or symbols to go off of. The closest anyone has gotten is "thou does judge" by using a basic cipher decoding website. However, I'm doubtful that this is the meaning. Firstly, it's inconsistent. It's mixing 17th century English with modern day English. It should either be "thou doth" or "you do," not "thou does." And on top of that, the first letters of each word are capitalized, which would imply that they're proper nouns, not regular words. The point is, nobody really knows what this text means for sure, or how to decode it, for now. We'll get back to this later. Just kidding, we'll get back to it right now. I didn't figure this out until after editing this part, because although I am semi-competent at solving puzzles, I'm not a super genius who knows of every single cipher in the universe. But by using an Enigma cipher, which is far too complex to explain right now, this translates to "kill Moore's death." This is also how we were supposed to decode the link, but we got the right verse either way, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, my bad. Regardless, this verse gives us a lot of possible context to this story. First off, it suggests that perhaps all of this murder and death is metaphorical, and could instead be about the sin of hatred rather than actual murder. However, this still leaves the big question unanswered. Why? Why does Morse hate? On top of that, who are these characters? All 3 of them, Primum, Secundus, and Tertia, seem afraid of Morse, and they're all named numerically, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So what is their relation to Morse, and why are they here? And who are they? Last but not least, the version. It's been censored up until now, alpha version 1.6.6. So bare minimum, we finally know what the version is, but where did this version come from and why has it been hidden so far? Well, those aren't questions that we can answer yet, so like usual, let's just keep them in mind going forward. The 8th video is the shortest so far, clocking in at only 52 seconds. Still no title. The video fades in from black and we see a player walking around, with all of the text on the top left censored. They make their way to a pool of water and sink into it, causing this. This is what it sounds like normally, and this is what it sounds like reversed. Personally, I can't really tell what it's saying either way, but if you can, feel free to tell me. The text that flashes on the screen is a different story though. First, it says, 4th character, he is guilty. God will not forgive. Fourth, death. Fourth. Then, murder. Beware. Hide. The first piece of text is clearly referencing the characters we've been seeing, as Caedes means fourth. But who's Caedes? It's Morse. I'm not going to beat around the bush here, it's Morse. It explains why the numbered characters keep showing up and are afraid of him. He's guilty to such a vast extent that not even God will forgive him. The second piece of text is more ambiguous, as it could either be talking about Caedes the person, or the Latin word for murder. Either way, it seems to be some kind of warning. After that, the word comics flashes on screen if we go by the order of the characters being flashed. But if we read them in this order, we get one of these two words, as the second C and I flash in the same spot. Google Translate seems to think that the first option means I will wash, which would line up with what the character is doing, going into a lake, but I can't find anywhere else that supports this translation. Lastly, the text, murder, dream equals prediction, appears on screen. And once again, it could be saying murder or referring to Caedes by name. Regardless, it implies that some of what we've been seeing are dreams, not reality. After fading back in, we see video 2 being played, but heavily distorted. I assume the implication here is that video 2 is one of the dreams that we just talked about, and if this is the case, it would explain how Caedes survived being thrown into the lava. He wasn't actually killed, it was just a dream. The problem is identifying what is and isn't a dream. There aren't any defining characteristics of video 2 other than it being weird, but that would describe all of these videos. On top of that, it specifically says dreams are predictions, but video 2 didn't predict anything very specific. Morse just joined, typed a question mark, and punched Caedes. This could have been a prediction for video 5 when Morse asks who Primum is, and Primum falls off the cross they stand on, but that's too vague to be helpful. Until we know more, it'll just have to be another unanswered question. But knowing that some of the events we see may not be reality is certainly helpful. We also know who the numbers are now. They're related to Morse in some way. And we also know why Caedes was in the Nether and isn't dead. Video 2 was presumably just a dream. That clears up a few questions, but many still remain. So let's continue on to video 9. This video has no title and starts in game, but it's far from normal. The colors are heavily distorted, and the player spawns in on terrain that looks like it was blown up, with a multitude of stone crosses in the vicinity. The audio playing is also very off-putting. It sounds like singing, because it is, but it's heavily distorted as well as reversed. The song playing sounds like Kyrie eleison, which is Greek, meaning Lord have mercy. I can't play the song in this video, but I'll leave a link to a comparison in a pinned comment in the description if you want to listen. So I'll give you a second to go do that. Okay, let's continue. This could perhaps be the player asking for mercy, in which case it's most likely Morse, as it was stated in the last video that not even God would forgive him. After wandering the wasteland a while, he eventually stumbles upon a staircase made of stone that leads to a path in the sky. He walks down it for a long while, and then it turns into bedrock. Once on this path, the screen starts to occasionally distort, and then it's a dead end. The music cuts, and Morse takes the plunge into blackness. The screen fades to black, and then we see this image of Jesus saying Memento Mori, which means, remember that you must die. Now, I want to pause for a second. This is a pretty unnerving part coming up, so I'll just watch it with you to make it a bit easier to take in. Okay, all situated? Want some popcorn or something? No? Me neither, I'm not hungry. Okay, here we go. Look, that's a Salvatore Mundi again. And those names, very important. I'll tell you in a second. See, this is what I meant. The baby's actually fine though, it's just stock footage of an ultrasound. Look, you see that? Morse just broke out of a big cross. That's very important. Remember that.
Hey bro, shut up. I'm trying to watch this.
And right here, look, it says, "My son, you have made a grave mistake," in Latin. That's very, very important. Remember that one. And right here, it says, "Your soul will be destroyed. You are an eternal martyr. May your body be destined for eternal torment." That was Latin too. I think you know that. They're all Latin. And now, it's just everything's gone wrong. I mean, it's saying Memento Mori all over the place. I mean, it's just Mondays, am I right? All right, that's over. Let's take a look at the end of the video now, shall we? This ending is by far the most important thing in the entire story. First off, it confirms that the numbered players were present at the cutting of the cross, and that's their relation to Mors. It also confirms that Mors was there, and he's the fourth character mentioned in video 8. This is also likely the grave mistake mentioned in this video. We also know that this video, excluding the ending, is from Mors' POV, given that he breaks out of the same cross we see him sealed into in the ending. It seems that Mors is being tortured for what he's done, as stated in this video. But what isn't explained is what he actually did. It's shown that he cut down the cross, but obviously he didn't really do that. The crucifixion happened 2,000 years ago. So clearly this is symbolic of something else. But even still, what do Primum, Secundus, and Tertia have to do with this? Why were they even present? And why were they sealed into crosses along with Mors if they didn't do the cutting? Also, what's Caedes' role in all of this? He wasn't even there. If Mors is already sentenced to eternal torture as this video says, what does he aim to achieve by killing Caedes? It's a question we already asked back in video 6 and 7, but unfortunately still isn't answered. Lastly, who are Jesse and Kuso from the gravestones? Well, spoiler alert, 2 random guys. Seriously, they're 2 people from a Discord server made by fans of the series that wanted to discuss the channel. This Discord server is actually pivotal to this ARG, so it's important that I mention it. But why their names are even here is a mystery, even to them. Although many of our questions have been answered here, more and more are piling on. So let's quickly summarize them so I can stop flipping through this stupid book. First, what sin did Mors actually commit? Next, why were Primum, Secundus, and Tertia present, and what are they doing now? We repeatedly see them show up to just talk to or be near Mors, but never a reason why. Additionally, what is Alpha version 1.6.6? Why is Caedes so important? It seems that Jesus wants him alive and Mors wants him dead, but we don't know why. And lastly, why are 2 people from Discord on gravestones? With our list of questions made more concise, let's move on to video 10 to see if it answers any of them. This video starts on a heavily distorted home screen that's mirrored and flipped. On both sides of the screen is Christ the Crucified by Diego Velázquez, the same image we saw in video 3, but this time with no head, a reminder of Mors' sin. We know this POV is Mors, as when he joins the world, Caedes also joins. Mors also has a lightly used diamond sword in his hotbar, and his health and armor are both censored. And then, another new person joins, named Player. They're standing atop a large cobblestone cross in the distance and look down at Caedes. We also see a link to a Wikipedia page detailing a war-related event. I won't go into detail about it as, spoiler alert, the details of the event don't seem very relevant to the overall story, and they're also quite dark. After that, we see random flashes from the previous video of Mors being tortured. Then, we see a link on the screen that leads to a US government website documenting the emails of a horrible criminal. But as far as I can tell, the email itself doesn't have anything noteworthy. After this, Player leaves the game, and Mors continues to stalk Caedes. After a bit, the screen becomes heavily distorted. It's impossible to see where Mors is going, but when the footage comes back, he's closing in on Caedes. As he gets closer, he draws his sword and the video gets increasingly bright and distorted. Mors begins attacking, but is abruptly cut off by an image of Jesus, who says this. These coordinates lead to the Colosseum, once again for seemingly no reason. The final scene of this video is real-world footage of a strange light in a building, but is cut off by a loud noise. This video doesn't offer us much in terms of new information, but it does strengthen our already existing ideas. For one, Mors wants to kill Caedes, and 2, Jesus is protecting Caedes. What we don't know is why either of these things are the case. Aside from solidifying things we already thought, this video doesn't really help much. As for the coordinates to the Colosseum, I really don't know what they're for. Same with all the other ones. The only other new thing is this Player person, who could possibly be Caedes' protector, as they stand atop a cross and watch over Caedes before leaving. But aside from that, they don't say or do anything we can analyze. So although this video only left us with one real question, who is Player, it was still important, as it confirmed a lot of our theories. But there's still a lot left to go, so let's move on to video 11. This video starts in the menu again. Last time we saw this was video 6, and all of the slots were empty. But now, every slot aside from the first one is being used. A new world is created in slot 1. The audio sounds strange, but it's actually just the disc Mellow High played in reverse. Aside from that, nothing really happens for the first 5 minutes of the video. It's seemingly just Caedes trying to build a house again, but as per usual, as soon as he thinks he's finally managed it, he gets cut off. The video abruptly cuts to someone walking down a path of redstone blocks during a thunderstorm. This is presumably another one of the dreams we heard about in video 8. Shortly after the cut, player joins the game, but once again leaves without saying anything as the person recording makes his way through a bunch of crosses floating in the air. They continue down this winding path of redstone before eventually arriving at a flaming netherrack tube. They jump in, and once again, all hell breaks loose. I turned it down a lot for you, but as far as I can tell, the audio is a random assortment of heavily distorted sounds. The player appears to be in some kind of labyrinth, with the word "discedo" constantly covering the screen, which in Latin means I leave, abandon, or depart. Caedes wanders this labyrinth for a while before eventually finding a sign that says Mors sine anima, which translates to Death of an Old Soul. Caedes continues exploring, and stumbles upon a chest with a button renamed to 495, which when decoded like we've done before, means die. Just beyond this is a barred off area with player trapped inside, and for the first time, he speaks, saying help me in Latin. Mors joins, and for the first time we actually see someone die. Player is killed, and Caedes stands there in shock as the screen flashes with an error message. He eventually moves on and finds an iron door, using the button he found to open it. Behind the door are 3 signs, only 2 of which can be read. The first sign says, "You will never get out, don't even try." The second sign gets distorted before we can read it, and the third sign says, "The evil in me is incurable," or irredeemable. After Caedes reads the final sign, Mors joins in front of him, and charges directly at him before the video ends. My assumption about this video is that everything after the cut near the middle is probably meant to be a dream, but what's going on, that's a different story, one that I'm not really sure of. All we see is Caedes wandering a labyrinth, the word die on a button, player is killed by Mors, and then the dream ends when Mors catches Caedes. There's also this text, Death of an Old Soul, which could refer to player as he dies, but it could also refer to Mors' soul, as in video 9 it said, your soul will be destroyed. The other 2 signs also seem to be related to Mors, and imply that Caedes is somehow trapped, and that Mors is evil beyond redemption, which lines up with video 9's text that told us that not even God would forgive him. But this all brings us back to the big question. What did Mors do? He did something so horrible that God himself refuses to forgive him, that his soul was destroyed, that he can't be redeemed, and yet we don't know what he actually did. He also kills player in this video, but we still have no clue who that actually is, as unlike the numbers who were present in the flashback from video 9, this character has no confirmed connection to Mors, but they do have some connection to Caedes. In video 10, they're on top of a cross looking down at him, and in this video they join while he's walking down the redstone path. Caedes also seems very shocked that he died, standing still for about 15 seconds after the fact. However, how or why they're important isn't clear, but they were only introduced a single video ago, so perhaps we just need to wait and keep it in mind as we move on to video 12. Arguably the most important video in the series so far. This video is still devoid of a title, but right away it's noteworthy. The version is uncensored, and it's alpha version 1.2.6, which is a real version unlike version 1.6.6. They also join a multiplayer world as opposed to a single player world, and online are 3 players, Primum, Secundus, and Tertia. The person we're watching is Mors. This implies that this video is a prequel, not current events or a dream. This answers a massive question. The numbered characters were Mors' friends before he did something unforgivable, and it seems that the video takes place before that happened. Nothing very significant happens during this recording, but Mors actually seems to be a good guy, giving all of his friends free stuff and spending most of the recording time simply building various things. However, their village sticks with the religious themes we've been seeing so far, as they have a church as well as a golden cross placed in the middle of the village. At about 5 minutes in, Mors goes inside the church for a moment, and we see a hole in front of the podium, but he leaves shortly after. The first real oddity occurs after about 7 minutes of regular footage. Primum asks, guys, have you heard of a strange new version of Minecraft? Both Mors and Secundus say no, but Tertia says yes. A few moments later, Secundus says, it is getting dark. Let's pray to our God. Primum and Tertia both do, but Mors says, nah, I don't want to do it. Primum replies, whatever Mors. Despite refusing, Mors follows them to the church anyway, but he stays outside. Secundus says, let's begin praying. At which point, Mors walks inside while the rest aren't looking, and throws a pork chop into the hole near the podium. Afterwards, the screen begins to glitch and the video ends. During the glitches, we can see this text, which translates to, do not even try, or do not even attempt. This is presumably in response to Moors offering pork to the whole. In the Old Testament, pork is considered unclean and not fit for sacrifice. In the New Testament, sacrifices aren't really a thing anymore, but this combined with the fact that Moors refuses to pray paints a clear picture. Moors rejects God. That could perhaps be his unforgivable sin, but it doesn't explain how Primum, Secundus, Tertia, and Caedes play a role in the story, or why Moors would want Caedes dead. The only other thing of note during this video is when Primum brings up a new strange version of Minecraft. It seems only he and Tertia knew about it, but that's all we're told. The version they're talking about is presumably alpha version 1.6.6, but what it does, how they know about it, or why is still unknown. However, the biggest piece of information so far lies in the description of this video, a link to a Google Drive document containing a multitude of things relating to this story. Screenshot 1993, a screenshot of a Minecraft update log containing a single line. Try new version of our product. Minecraft Alpha version 1.6.6. Familia.jpg, an image of a father and son making faces at the camera. The date in the corner is June 18th, 1994. Question.html, a page that says, "No one has ever tried to resist divine judgment. Try. It will be burdensome." Above and below, it lists Exodus 20, the chapter of Exodus that lists the 10 Commandments given to Moses. Lastly, blank.wav, a spectrogram that when visualized says, "Father is dead." Brief pause. I forgot to mention this in the original recording, but there was also this executable file that ran a very basic game called The Labyrinth of Forgotten Souls, but it was deleted shortly after the Google Doc was revealed. The gameplay is very similar to the events of video 11, and the game ends when you reach this dot, at which point the text "delete this game immediately" flashes on the screen, and the game closes itself. As far as I can tell, there are no secrets in this game, the audio, or the code. It's literally just a maze that shuts down when you win. Because this was removed so quickly, I doubt it has much significance, so I won't bring it up again, but I wanted to be thorough and mention it anyway. Okay, back to the video. Now, what does all of this mean? Well, the HTML file appears to simply be echoing what we've seen so far. Moors is being told to stop resisting God, lest he face consequences. Screenshot 1993 gives us some information about alpha version 1.6.6, but only that it was somehow released in 1993. Or perhaps this is the 1993rd screenshot someone took. It's not really clear. Familia.jpg was supposedly taken a year later in 1994, but aside from that, gives no relevant information. On its own at least. The .wav file says that father is dead, as mentioned before, and if the man in the photo is father, I'm assuming the implication is that he's dead. This could mean that the player character is someone's father, and that Moors killed him, but even if that's true, we're still left with the question of why. Regardless, a lot of our questions are answered. We know that Primum, Secundus, Tertia, and Moors were friends. Moors' sin is something related to rebellion against God. Alpha version 1.6.6 is a secret version that very few people know of. And player, aka father, is dead. What we still aren't certain of is why Caedes is so important, or what Moors is trying to achieve. And this is where I expected to move on to video 13. But instead, something happened that I've never seen done before. Caedes opened a server. About 20 minutes after everything was added to the Google Drive, a text document was added containing this string of Morse code, which decodes into an Eternos link. The server was opened and closed 3 times, each time generating a different world. The first session was only open for 2 minutes, and as a result, only 3 images were captured. First, this image, confirming Moors was present. Next, this image. Moors appears to be counting down in chat, and says, "Either leave or you will die." Lastly, this image of a book written by Moors. In English, it reads, "You are men, greedy creatures. I was a man, but now my soul has vanished. I am filled only with hatred." Men here doesn't refer to males, but rather mankind as a whole. This is an insane piece of information as well. Moors is telling us directly that he isn't human at all, rather a soulless husk driven by nothing but hatred. Shortly after this, the server went down for another 7 minutes, before reopening as a superflat world. This time, actual footage was captured. The video starts and we can see that Caedes himself is in the world, but he doesn't really do much. After a few minutes, Moors also joins, randomly dies, and then Caedes leaves, and a thunderstorm starts. Like Caedes, Moors doesn't really do much, but what little he does do is quite significant. First, he built an inverted netherrack cross and lights it on fire, as well as attacking people who try to break it. He also gives everyone the hunger effect. Moors then begins to write a book, which eventually falls into the hands of the person recording. Inside is Latin, of course, and in English it reads, "By killing that very thing, I will free myself from torture and gain freedom." That very thing is presumably Caedes, which finally explains his motive, but still leaves us with another question. Why does killing Caedes free him from torture? Well, we'll have to get back to that in a minute. Morris kills the person who gets the book next, burns it, and okay, look, I really don't know what he's doing. He builds an obsidian box, a bedrock box, he gets in the box, then he starts blowing up and just leaves. I think he's lost it. After that, Primum joins and says hello in Latin. He says this right before leaving as well, which translates to, "My trinity is innocent. We are the victims." When he says his trinity, he's presumably talking about himself, Secundus, and Tertia. But what are they victims of? Unfortunately, he doesn't elaborate and leaves very quickly. Then, Mors returns, and he's pissed. He says, "I will drink your blood. You will all see my pain." Right before banning everyone. That's right. Mors doesn't just hate Caedes, he hates us. Yes, us. Me and you. But Mors spares one person, Jack Floofy 14. He asks him a question. Do you know how to achieve that? Caedes. Dead Caedes. Death itself is asking a random guy from Discord how to kill someone protected by God. How did we get here? After that though, he places some lava, burns a bunch of pork, and then bans Jack before shutting the server down again. This session specifically answers a ton of questions. Most importantly, it finally gives Mors a concrete motive. He claims that killing Caedes will free him from his torture. He simply doesn't know how to do it. But it still leaves Caedes' importance up for debate. We know why Mors wants him dead, but not why that's the case. What's so special about Caedes? Well, that's just it. We don't know. But this session also answers why Jesse and Kuso had their name on gravestones. Mors wants us dead, and both Jesse and Kuso are the founders of the Discord server made to solve the mystery, so Mors naturally hates them the most. So once again, a ton of stuff is cleared up here. But the biggest questions are still shrouded in mystery. This isn't all though. The server only stayed down for about 10 minutes, and once again was wiped with a newly generated world after starting back up. Shortly after the server starts, Caedes joins and says something incredibly important. Jack Floofy 14 asks, "Caedes, do you know what a sacrifice is?" And Caedes responds, "Me." So Caedes is seemingly aware of the fact that Mors wants to kill him to be freed from his torture. But unfortunately, he doesn't explain why. After that, he builds the same house that he made in video 6, and then the GOAT makes an appearance. That's right, I joined the server and got my own POV recorded. I joined right after Caedes finished building a house, and shortly after that, says, "I'm sorry," and leaves the game. Then, CoolGamer674, someone else recording, gets whispered to by the server. All the text is Latin and translates to, "I will not protect all of you. My blessing does not extend to all." This is presumably about the divine protection Caedes has. It seems that it doesn't extend to us. Essentially, we're in Mors' hit list too, but unlike Caedes, we're not getting protection. After this, everyone is starved, just like when Mors joined in the previous session. However, Mors isn't actually online yet. After that, CoolGamer gets teleported into the void a bunch of times, teleported into a desert and dies of fall damage. He randomly gets 25,000 levels. I mean, he's really going through it. After that, I get teleported into a wall and suffocate, everyone gets teleported into the jungle, and finally, we get teleported to the ocean. For a few minutes, the random chaos stops. We built a raft in the ocean, but then the server calls us idiots. Mors joins and kills us all by burning us to death in an obsidian box. Then he opens the box and lights another portal inside of it. And once we go inside, he says this, which translates to, "Just try to meddle with my affairs. You will regret it." He also summons a wither, but it didn't really do much because it's stupid and got stuck on the roof of the nether. After this, he leaves, and then the server shut down. This session didn't give us much new information, other than the fact that Mors really doesn't like us. But it did answer why Caedes is so important. He's a sacrifice. But this raises another equally as important question. Why is Caedes a sacrifice? Why does sacrificing Caedes by killing him absolve Mors of his unforgivable sin? That question is still up for debate. But it also seems that Mors himself isn't happy that we're investigating Caedes, going as far as to mess with the person recording more than everyone else. Wait a minute. How does he know that? The only reason we knew he was recording is because we were all in a voice chat in the Discord server. That means Caedes was there. Not Caedes the character, but whoever was running the channel was listening. But who was it? Well, long story short, everyone in the call was accounted for on the server, except for this guy, Billy. And coincidentally, he was the person who noticed the Google Drive updating both times mere seconds after it happened. So, we decided to confront him, and this is what he had to say. Oh. Okay, well, maybe it wasn't him. We'll never know. This was his last message. Ever. He literally never spoke again after this. But a few days before this, he did send this image. That's right. Winnie the Pooh in the Matrix. Wait, hold on. Why is that important? Well, it's because after Billy went inactive, a person with his exact profile picture joined, and thus they were the new prime suspect. However, when I sent them a message to ask about it, they had some, let's say, choice words to say to me. I won't translate this because it's a bit vulgar, but long story short, they denied being Caedes pretty strongly. So I decided to leave them alone. If they're not Caedes, bugging them won't help. And if they are Caedes, they clearly don't want to tell me. But anyways, that's the only other noteworthy thing to come of this. About 4 days later, video 13 was posted, still lacking a title. The video starts off bad. The menu is completely broken, the screen is distorted, and all of the text is heavily corrupted. The player selects the first world, and despite the corruption, we appear to be back in Caedes' original world, with the pool of water and large cobblestone cross. But then, we begin to hear children laughing, and a distorted Steve face rapidly flashes on the screen. The player tries to leave, but the button refuses. However, the game comes in clutch and simply kicks him out. He also gets an error that says this: warning, at the moment, your version is infected. In order to maintain security, we will automatically transfer you to a more stable version to protect your health. Upon going back to the menu, the game is switched to release 1.7.10, and the world is completely normal. After that, Caedes just plays the game for a while, but we do see something a bit odd. When he gets an achievement, his name is Caedes, period. Why is there a period in front of his name? It's never brought up, unfortunately, but it's certainly odd. Aside from that, the gameplay is truly normal. It seems that the problems are gone. Who am I kidding? You know that's a lie, the video isn't over. So, at around 13 minutes in, Caedes types this on a sign, which means, I set off on a journey. He uses some other signs to point arrows in the direction he intends to go, but he waits until daytime to actually leave. After the sun comes out, he gets in a boat and goes on a journey. He arrives at a village, but not much happens until near the end of the video. Mors is back and he starts reefing the village. This guy's a real piece of work, huh? But unlike usual, Caedes scares him off quite easily by building a cross. Another interesting detail though, Mors' name also has appeared at the end, but once again it isn't explained. Caedes spends the rest of the video trying to put out the fires that Mors started, and the video ends while he's doing it. In this video though, only two really significant things happen. First off, 1.6.6 is gone! Yes! Finally! Oh, never mind. Yeah, that's the other significant thing. Mors is still here. So unfortunately, it seems we still don't know why version 1.6.6 exists. But it seems that it functions as a virus of some kind. The main question now is what infection is this error message talking about, and why is it on version 1.6.6 specifically? This version predates Mors losing his soul, as it was mentioned by Primum in video 12, when they were all still friends. So clearly it's significant in some way. Like most other things so far, we just don't know why. On top of all of this though, the Google Drive from the previous video was updated to have 3 new items: image1 and 2.png, and note.wav. The note.wav file is the least significant as far as I can tell. Take a listen. In case you were wondering, this is what it looks like as a spectrogram. This file is confusing, because it's not Morse code, the notes don't spell anything, and it's not a spectrogram. I really don't know what it's for. The other 2 images on the other hand, they're screenshots of text messages. The first one is coming from someone named Peter, and based on the first message, is being sent to someone named Michael. It says this: "Yo, Michael, wanna come with us to religion class?" No. Why? I've told you already that I have different views. I'm not interested. You should at least go out of respect. Shut the up. I've already told you my views. This Michael character is presumably Mors based on the fact that he's the only one refusing to go, just like he refused to pray in video 12. If that's the case and this is Mors, then Peter is one of the numbers. But which one? Well, you might assume it's Primum as they both start with a P, but I don't think so. Take a look at the second image. In it, the screenshot is from Peter based on the fact that he quotes what we just saw Michael say, and is being sent to someone named Scott. It says this: "What the is going on with Michael? What do you mean? He refused to go to the religion class at least once just because he has different views. I'm worried that him skipping classes could get him into trouble at school. Lol. Anyways, how about Minecraft? Scott, he does not care, bro. He's locked in. He's trying to beat the Ender Dragon. And that's why I don't think he's Secundus, as the S in his name would imply. Based on their behaviors in video 12, Secundus is the one that told them they all need to pray at night, and Primum was the one who said, whatever Mors, when Mors refused to participate. Based on that, Scott is probably Primum, as he's consistently apathetic towards Mors' rejection of their religion, and Secundus is probably Peter, as he's consistently trying to encourage their participation. Maybe I'm crazy and it's not that deep, but I'm assuming the name starting with the same letter is just a red herring to throw people off. But all this really does is give us a backstory that we already knew. We know who Mors used to be and what he is now, but not exactly what happened in between to turn him from a somewhat rude atheist into an unforgivable soulless husk being eternally tortured. But on the same day, June 3rd, 2026, he made a community post rather than a video. This post is just Morse code with a smiley face. When translated, it shows a date, June 4th, 2026. And so, I decided to wait until that day came. On this day, the post was edited to be blank, and 2 videos were uploaded, video 14 and video 15. We'll start with video 14. Still no wait a minute, there is a title. It's not much, but there's a star 50 spaces out from where the title begins. This will make sense in just a few minutes, so hang on. The video starts with a red flag. This splash text. Leave is not a vanilla piece of splash text. Unfortunately, Caedes doesn't notice or just doesn't care, and decides to in fact not leave. Once he joins, we see that he's made some decent progress, having iron tools and a bigger house. He goes outside and sees a massive cube to the right of his house, but doesn't seem to care. He opens a book and quill, and inside is a to-do list, with only one thing to do: pet a dog. Anyway, at least he's got his priorities straight. He also adds one more point: build a farm. But as he's about to do that, he notices that the sun is partially obscured. That, on top of the fact that there's a giant cube outside of his house, prompts him to change his to-do list to a single point: investigate. And so he does. He finds that the cube is made of dirt, and inside is another cube filled with glowstone crosses, and at the bottom are a bunch of torches. But right as he goes in, we hear a weird noise. You might not have noticed, but it seems that this guy caused it. It appears to be an angel. Who it is or why it's here though, I don't know, but it only sticks around for about 2 frames. Caedes doesn't even notice it and goes into the basement. At the bottom are 2 corridors, one that goes left, the other forward. Caedes chooses the smaller corridor that goes forward, but it's completely unlit and he's clearly hesitant, but goes anyway. At the end is a chest with a book titled -316, written by Mors. Once the chest closes, a strange noise begins to play and Caedes decides to flee. Once he escapes the corridor, the angel from before makes another appearance. The sound ends as soon as he escapes the cube, and he seals the hole back up. The audio playing here is a spectrogram that contains the text, "The end is near," when visualized. Caedes then goes home to read the book he found. The first page says, "This lesson will begin the countdown to the day of judgment, when the world will suffer and the water will once again be turned into blood. A star is much more than a point in the sky. Amen." The book is 50 pages, but the other 48 are blank and the 50th is a period. After reading this, Caedes goes outside, and the large dirt cube disappears into the fog. We also see the angel again near a village house. Caedes then goes inside and partially blocks up all of his windows with stone, and the video ends with the choir as well as this image. Okay, so apparently the sun is important now. There's a star in the title, the sun is partially gone, the book Mors wrote talks about a star, and the video ends with the word sun. This is probably all about the book of Revelations, the book of the Bible that describes Judgment Day. Verses like Revelation 6:12-13 describe this very thing, saying that the sun will become black and the stars of heaven will fall onto the earth. This lines up with the spectrogram saying, "The end is near," as well as Mors' book saying that the water will be turned into blood, which is exactly what happens in Revelation 16:3-4. So Judgment Day seems to be the focus now, I guess, and based on the fact that Mors' book says this lesson will begin the countdown to the Day of Judgment, I think it's safe to assume that Mors might be trying to bring on Judgment Day. The only other major detail in this video is this angel. It appears 3 times. Here, here, and here. It appears to be this image, whose origin I can't exactly figure out, as I'm not actually the one that found it. It was someone from the Discord server that I mentioned before. But regardless, why it seems to be following Caedes isn't made clear, but it's obviously intentional, so it must be significant somehow. Like I said before though, there were 2 videos uploaded on June 4th, so let's check out the other one, video 15. This is the new shortest video, coming in at only 42 seconds, and has the same title as the previous video. This one is strange, possibly another dream mentioned in video 8. In it, the player walks up some stairs towards a room made of snow and bedrock. At the top is a glowstone and bedrock cross with a written book and an item frame on the front. They grab the book, titled, ? And inside it says, "The boundaries between worlds of sinners and angels are weakening. Someone or something is actively affecting it. If the star becomes what I fear, it will be the end not only of the game world, but also of the innocent in the real world. The manifestations of angels from the world of saints have already been noted." On the next page it says, "Stellar etherizers are either extinguished, absorbed by something, or die. And lastly, angelic anomalies continue to materialize." Now, something I want to quickly point out, etherizers is not a word. It seems to be describing a being that manipulates the ether. which is a word usually used to describe the air of the heavens, so perhaps this word is referring to angels or other heavenly beings, and these anomalies may be the angels we've been seeing so far. It also says, the manifestations of angels from the world of saints have already been noted, which might not just be about in-game angels, but also real-world sightings. The coordinates we've been seeing, as well as the real-world footage, have seemed random, but perhaps they're locations that these anomalies have been seen, and are only now appearing due to the weakening boundaries between worlds. But that brings up the question, who is noting this? This is written like documentation. I bring this up because way back in video 12, the IP Moors used to join the server was a US Department of Defense IP based on the fact that it starts with 26. So perhaps this entire thing is some kind of government experiment, and this some kind of report. But that's a big claim for such a small amount of evidence, so I won't pretend like it's a fact just yet, but it's definitely interesting to consider. That aside, the most concerning thing here is the line, if the star becomes what I fear, it will be the end of not only the game world, but also of the innocent in the real world. This is clearly telling us that whatever is going on here extends beyond Caedes' Minecraft world, and if it gets much worse, could result in real world consequences. It seems that the sun is transforming into something else, and the person who wrote this book is afraid of that. And that's probably why it's getting darker, and it's all happening in Caedes' world, for whatever reason. Caedes seems to be attracting all of these angelic anomalies, and Moors is presumably the one affecting the barrier between realms like this book says. This further supports the idea that Moors is trying to bring on Judgment Day, or some kind of similar event. But how this Minecraft world or Caedes himself relate to that isn't something this video elaborates on. All it tells us is that the sun is somehow related and that things aren't looking good. The next video wasn't uploaded for 4 days, and in that time, something very interesting happened on the Caedes investigation server. Someone joined claiming to be Caedes himself. And look, I didn't fall for this. This guy is a terrible liar, but a lot of other members in the server were willing to hear him out. That caused the real Caedes to make a community post denouncing the fake Caedes, which confirmed a long-standing theory. Caedes is in the server, watching us talk. But after this fake Caedes was thwarted, he revealed his true name, Mr. Parkour. Everyone else thinks this guy is a troll, but I know he's connected. I know it. But regardless, after this, we never heard from the villainous mastermind ever again. And with peace restored to the universe, video 16 was released on June 8th, 2026, with the same title as the previous two. This video starts on the world select screen, but the date on the world is gone. Previously, it was June 4th, 2026, but now it's blank. Upon joining, Caedes finds an upside down netherrack cross with flames on it, exactly like the one we saw Moors build on the server. His house also has random patches of bedrock placed in the walls, and the rest of his house has also been heavily griefed. The sun is also significantly more broken, only about half remaining, but Caedes' render distance gets set really short while looking at it. When he goes downstairs, the screen glitches and we see what appears to be an angel near these blacked out paintings, and once it vanishes, the sun has returned. Caedes also notices this book near his door. It's not signed, so we don't know where it came from, but inside is a bunch of basic math. The first question is, find the first term of the series, and then it lists 1, 4, 7, and 10. It's not a trick question either. The answer is literally just 1, the first term listed. The next question is a equals 4 plus 3 times n minus 1. Find a5. To solve this, we just take the number next to a and substitute n for that number, in this question 5, and then solve the problem. 4 plus 3 times 5 minus 1, which equals 16. On every other page of the book, questions similar to this one are posed, and once solved, give us this sequence of numbers: 1, 16, 15, 3, 1, 12, 25, 16, 19, 5. Decoded like we've done before, it spells apocalypse, which is in line with the themes we've been seeing so far. Caedes goes about repairing his house, but once he goes outside, the colors get heavily distorted, and we can see that the dirt cube from the previous video is still there. On the other side of his house, he also finds a massive glowstone cross, as well as an inverted bedrock cross in a pool of lava, and hears multiple cave noises while nearby. They don't seem to contain anything though, and he returns to his house. Once he gets back though, disc 13 begins to play. He decides to block up his windows and returns to the dirt cube to investigate once again. But unlike before, an entrance is already dug, and there's a large hole below it. He bridges across, and suddenly the image of an angel flashbangs the screen. However, he doesn't seem to care. Once he gets down, the tunnel he went down before is cut off and ends in a massive crater rather than a dead end with a chest. He blocks it off and decides to go down the other path, albeit with some hesitation. But as he's staring into the darkness, we once again see an angel near the end of the hallway show up for a brief moment. But Caedes still doesn't seem to pay it any mind. He eventually decides to brave the darkness and goes down the tunnel. He also makes the smart decision to place a torch, and dear God. Is that parkour? I told you he was connected. I told you. He wanders the hall a bit more, and once he nears the end, he places a torch, only to be hit by the loudest cave noise of all time. The angel from before also flashes on the screen a few times, but he still doesn't seem to care. As he walks to the end, we also hear someone breaking blocks, but we don't actually see anyone. Once he reaches the end, the noises stop, and he finds a chest containing 4 stacks of glowstone, 4 stacks of pork chops, and a book written by Moors called 1. Caedes decides to haul ass, understandably so, and manages to leave the cube without any problems. But as he exits, the screen becomes desaturated and we hear a cave noise. But other than that, nothing happens. Once he gets back home safely, he goes inside to read this book, which says, "The boy who dared not obey God's will suffered the penalty of losing his soul. He is no longer human. His will is destined for eternal misery. He harbors a dark and wicked plan." Every page after that is blank, but on page 43 is a list of the word Moors followed by an increasing number, starting at Moors 1 and ending at Moors 136 4 pages later. After reading this, the color of the video returns, and the rest of the pages are blank aside from a period on page 50. Nothing much happens for the rest of the video aside from Caedes building a wall around his house, after which the video ends. This video, like before, doesn't give us much to work with that we didn't already know, but here's the situation. It seems that Moors is still trying to usher in Judgment Day and things are getting worse. The angels are more in our face, the sun is getting darker, and the overall frequency of strange events is getting stronger. Once again, the premise of the apocalypse or Judgment Day is also brought up, with the book from the beginning of the video spelling out apocalypse. The 1 book that Caedes found also reinforces that Moors is somehow behind it all, saying he has a dark and wicked plan, and once again confirming that Moors is not just an evil human, but someone so evil that he transcended his humanity and soul to become a being of hatred and death, and is somehow affecting the barrier between heaven and earth according to video 15. Speaking of video 15, these angelic anomalies. I think it's safe to say by now that they may be just that, anomalies. No intent or purpose, just a byproduct of this weakening barrier that video 15 talks about. But once again, we still don't know Caedes' role. Why is he so important? Why is all this happening to him specifically? So, although the list is quite short, the questions are pretty big. However, I get the feeling that we're close to the answers. But this is where the road came to an end for a while. There was zero activity from the Caedes channel for weeks after video 16 was uploaded. So much so that we started to get worried that maybe he quit for some reason. Then came my evil scheme. Remember the last time there was drama in the investigation Discord? Caedes made and deleted a post to clear it up. So, yeah, we made a fake Caedes community post that said he was quitting to bait him into either denying the post or not, and to be fair, it worked perfectly, but I'll admit, this was kind of low. So Caedes, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I just needed to know if you were alive, man. But either way, with the confirmation that he was still working on it, all I could do was continue waiting. And then finally, on June 27th, 19 days after the last upload, Caedes made a post. The Morse code in the post translates to June 28th, 2026. And on that day, he did not upload. He just edited the post and added a question mark at the end. Hey, he was busy fighting off demons or something, man. I'd have a hard time uploading if I was getting shown to by a bunch of supernatural beings as well. But on June 29th, 2026, he finally posted. Video 17. It's the same title as the previous few, but with a period at the end, and it's by far the most impactful video so far. The video starts on the loading screen, with the same leave splash text that we saw before. Once Caedes joins, the world has been ravaged, and the sun is fully transformed into a disturbing face. We also see that he has nothing but a loaf of bread named Mori in his hotbar. The entire world is in shambles, with bedrock crosses all over the place, the village in pieces, and a massive wall of what appears to be radioactive lava to the left of his house. Behind his house is just gone. It's been wiped off the map completely. But to the right, the dirt cube is still there, albeit full of holes. Inside is the same, with the cube containing the glowstone crosses that we saw in video 14 and 16. Once he reaches the bottom, two things have changed. First, the tunnel to the left is blocked off by lava. And second, there are 10 cross-shaped holes in the ground on the right. The tunnel leading forwards is still a dead end. He wanders the area a little bit before finally trying to flick these levers on the floor. Upon doing so, a secret tunnel opens with a chest inside, titled question mark. Once again written by Moors. Inside it says the third tunnel, and then lists these coordinates. Caedes leaves the dirt cube after reading this and takes shelter in a small dirt hole to assess the situation. He checks back in with the book as well as his F3 menu, and decides to go out and find this third tunnel by following the listed coordinates. This takes him straight back to the forward-facing tunnel, where there's apparently been a hidden lever this entire time. but to be fair, given how low quality these videos are, it's basically impossible to notice. The lever opens a secret entrance that leads to the bottom of the hole at the end of the tunnel, and Caedes finds yet another chest containing a book titled Warning in Latin. Inside it says, "When the devil reveals his true nature in the star, immediately climb through the pipes. This is the only path to salvation. Know, however, that it will lead to unforeseen consequences." After reading this, all hell breaks loose, similar to video 9, and we finally see the face in the sun. It has 3 eyes and a menacing smile, but perfectly matches with the sun image from video 14. Based on this book, this is presumably Satan himself. After that, the words Tempus Advenit appear all over the screen, meaning the time has arrived. Despite the chaos, Caedes manages to make his way out and back to the surface, where he looks at the sun one final time before the video ends. Then, this flashes on screen. It says, "You will not escape," and then lists the date June 30th, 2026. Then, the video ends. This video is making one thing clear. It's over. There's nothing we can do. The sun has transformed into the face of Satan, and the world has been ravaged. Satan has revealed himself in the sun, as the book Caedes found said he would, but the book also offers a way of escape. It says, "Immediately climb through the pipes. This is the only way to salvation." But two things don't make sense. For one, what does climbing through the pipes actually mean? And secondly, Morris wrote this? The guy that wants to kill Caedes, who God won't forgive, is offering a way to salvation? Why? It doesn't line up with his motives, but it could also be a trick. There may be a catch to Morris' salvation. He says in the book that escaping will have unforeseen consequences, but he doesn't explain what those are. However, if we assume Morris is evil as the story implies, this could all be a trick, and his salvation is not actual salvation, but rather something like the mark of the beast from the book of Revelation. This mark is said to save you from Satan on Judgment Day, but make you an enemy of God when judgment actually arrives. That fact could be the unforeseen consequences mentioned in this book. If that is the case, it's most likely that Morris is an Antichrist figure, and that's his unforgivable sin. Overall though, it seems that the end has arrived. Everything that was warned about has happened. The only question now is, how does it end? As promised, at the end of video 17, another was uploaded the next day. This video is unique though, as it's not a recording of anyone's POV, and rather a documentation of all the videos we've been seeing. In it, it gives us a clip of each video and tells us the title. It says that video 1 is titled, "Another Sinner Has Arrived." This is presumably talking about Caedes, as he's the one that arrived, but why? What did Caedes do to be called a sinner here? You might be thinking that the jump scare at the end of the video was Morris and that's the sinner that arrived, but video 2's title debunks that. Video 2 is called First Meeting. It's the video where Caedes meets Morris, which confirms that the jump scare in video 1 wasn't Morris. Otherwise, this wouldn't be their first meeting, it would be the second. Video 3 is called Jesus, for obvious reasons. Video 4 is called Unknown Message. This is presumably referencing the ending scene. Video 5 is called 136 is Devil's Sidekick. This confirms what I already suspected, that Morris serves Satan rather than being Satan himself, or acting on his own. The next video though isn't one we've seen, and it has no number or upload date, but is titled 136 with the Devil, and shows us a still frame of Satan's face from Morris' perspective, confirming that the face we saw in the last video as well as the face in the sun is definitely just Satan. Video 6 is titled Unsuccessful Attempt, which I think is referring to Morris' unsuccessful attempt to kill Caedes in this video. Video 7 is titled Troubles. This is a bigger piece of information, as it brings up the Trinity and their motives, but it seems that they're causing trouble for Morris, which would imply that they're on the good side. What that entails, I don't really know, but it's interesting nonetheless. We'll get back to it later. Video 8 is titled Again, and yeah, half of video 8 is just video 2 again, pretty self-explanatory. Video 9 is called 136 Soul. This is about Morris' soul, as throughout the story it's stated that he's being tortured, and it seems that video 9 is meant to give us a look at that torture. Video 10 is called How Dare You. I assume this means, how dare you try to kill Caedes, because at the end of the video that's what he attempts to do, and Jesus comes in to stop him after being given the chance to turn from his ways in video 6. If you remember, the ending of that video said, "You shall not kill, go and sin no more," and Morris clearly chose not to do that. Video 11 is called Video 12 for some reason, and it's called Patricide, the act of killing one's own father, and as we see in this video, Morris kills Player. This is huge, as it confirms that Player is Morris' father, and that Morris killed him. The next video has no title, but we called it Video 12, the video where Morris and the Trinity are all friends. In this video it's called Past, which just confirms that it was a backstory. Video 13 is called Safe Space, which is just a reference to how Caedes had his version updated to something seemingly safe, although we know that didn't last very long. Video 14 is called Devil's Plan, which is just a reference to the events of the video, as we now know what was going on with the sun and the angels. Video 15 is called Warning, a reference to the book we saw, which laid out what would happen if the devil succeeds with his plan. Video 16 is called Devil Eating the Sun, just a reference to the fact that his plan is being enacted, and we see that in the form of more angelic anomalies and the sun getting darker. Video 17 is called The Beginning of the Apocalypse. Pretty self-explanatory. This video didn't really give us anything new, but it's insanely helpful in giving us answers about the story. For one, we know Mors' motive for certain. He's just evil. He worships Satan, does his bidding, and rejects Jesus' willingness to give him a chance to repent in video 6. He also killed his father, and while his motive isn't stated, it's presumably due to the fact that he's an ally of Satan himself. However, there are still questions to be answered, like what's Caedes' importance? He's our protagonist, and yet we know little to nothing about him, or why Mors killing him would free him from his torture as stated in the server. And lastly, who's naming these videos? Like video 15, it seems like some kind of documentation, but by whom? Well, once again, we simply don't know for sure. Maybe Caedes himself, maybe it's a government experiment like I said earlier, or maybe something else. But regardless, we know where this is going. The apocalypse has begun, now we just need to know how it ends. 20 days later, on June 19th, 2026, the Caedes channel uploaded its final video, titled Period. This video starts about as standard as it gets at this point. Very glitchy, very loud noise, and the splash text telling Caedes to leave. He spawns in on the flaming netherrack cross laid in the ground, with what appears to be someone's face in the grass, but it's too grainy to see clearly. The rain is red, presumably turned to blood as Mors said it would in video 14. But aside from that, the chaos from the last video seems to have stopped. But Caedes still heeds the advice of the book he found before, and escapes by literally climbing through the pipes inside the dirt cube. He surfaces at the top of the cube, and finds another main pipe leading higher. He gets inside and begins to ascend, and when he surfaces, he enters a loading screen. As he waits, two images are flashed on the screen. This one, which appears to depict heaven, earth, and hell, as well as some kind of void dimension on the right. The second image shows a scene in the sky, with Satan's face in the middle, and three angel-like beings below, with the text World 1 in the middle. Lastly, Jesus makes a final appearance, and then we are greeted by one final scene. Caedes finds himself in a void, and speaks to Mors' final form, Mors 137. This is what he has to say.
Caedes, you are destined for eternal torment. You will relive your pain again and again. There is no escape for you. Your punishment is cyclical.
Mors leaves, and Caedes is seemingly dropped into the abyss, at which point the footage cuts to black. We then see the text, there is a little Caedes in each of us. This is the end. The cycle will repeat itself again and again. After that, the video ends. That's it? That's the last episode? So what does any of this mean? Well, let's quickly recap what we know. First, Mors. Mors is evil, plain and simple, evolving slowly to be more evil, from Mors 1 to Mors 137 by the ending. He rejected God and was so adamant in his rejection that he chose to serve Satan instead, and after that, he killed his father. He also at some point lost his soul. It is an enemy of God because of his complete and total rejection of him. His friends, Primum, Secundus, and Tertia, are all innocent bystanders who wanted to help him, but ended up being ensnared in his web of sin due to the fact that they were present at the cutting of the cross. It also appears that they're now subservient to Satan, as shown in this image. Caedes, the person running the channel, not the character, added a text document to the Google Drive, stating the upload date of this video as well as the word end, clearly stating that it was over, and revealed himself to me and everyone else in the Discord server as the real Caedes. He then confirmed various questions, with this image being one of them. He said that these angels are the Trinity, and that they're not evil, they were simply around Mors when they shouldn't have been. But back to the recap. The Trinity aren't truly innocent. Although not as evil as Mors based on their actions, they still willingly took part in the cutting of the cross. Just because they weren't the ones to swing the axe doesn't mean they aren't guilty of the same sin. But once again, the most evasive question in the series still remains. Who is Caedes? He was seemingly damned to the same fate as Mors, the most evil man alive behind Satan himself, but unlike usual, there's no answers to wait for, no secrets to be revealed. It's over. So I asked Caedes himself, but he said it was simply a mystery meant to be unsolvable, and I think that's the point. This story is of the cycle of evil, a cycle that cannot and will not end, because evil has no motive, no story. It doesn't think or plan, it just is. And that cycle is what we witnessed in the series 137 times. Satan to Moors, Moors to Caedes. The result of innocent people allowing themselves to partake in the cycle of evil and perpetuate it as a result. Moor seems more evil than everyone else, but only because we rarely saw him before he became what he is now. The few times we did see that side of him, he was kind and caring to his friends. It was only after he gave himself up to Satan that he became irredeemable. Same with the other characters. The Trinity were good, but they stooped to Moor's level and allowed themselves to participate in his unforgivable sin represented by the cutting of the cross, and so serve Satan just as Moors does. Caedes too turned to evil. When Judgment Day came and his resolve was tested, he decided to abandon the protection of God he was shown to have up until now, and instead put his faith in Satan's promise that if he climbed through the pipes, he would be saved. The ending tells us that the cycle will repeat with Caedes, the 137th time, just as it did before, and that each of us have a sliver of that same evil in each of us. But we also have the capacity to reject that sliver and break the cycle. Although Moors was the victor in this fight with Caedes, he was still consistently afraid of one thing: the knowledge that he was on the losing side. The knowledge that, in reality, evil had already lost.